Hey, everybody. We're so excited for the Purpose Podcast Live. We have best-selling author. She's a smitten wife. She's a mom of 3 boys. I don't know how she has time to be here with us because she is busy at home and going across the country promoting her book as well as speaking. But she has taken time out to be here with us because we love the same topic. Callie Daruk. Did I say it right? She is, and we are all about the Purpose Podcast today because it is on everybody's mind. We've been stuck at home. Life has not gone according to plan. So we're all kind of asking the question, is there more to life than this? And as Christians, how do we connect to our purpose? So Callie is going to talk about the study she's done with her devotion book that's coming out October 6th. But she and I share the same topic. So let's talk about purpose, Callie. Everybody wants that telegram from God, that letter in the mail that says, this is your job in life, go do this. But we don't get that. So why do you think we've complicated this topic so much?
Oh, goodness. I think there's a couple of reasons. This is the question that is screaming in all of our hearts. What are we here for? And this is what you speak about day in and day out. I think it gets complicated for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think our insecurities and our own inferiorities stand in the way. I know for me, like you said, you are expecting this flashing neon sign that says, go this way, or this is what you're supposed to do. Right. But I have discovered such beauty in being content where I'm at, laying that at Christ's feet. For me, there was a time when I was knee deep in dirty diapers, and I couldn't fathom that was my purpose. Mm-hmm. In reality, that was exactly what I was supposed to do in that moment. So sometimes I think our own insecurities and inferiorities hold us back. And then other times we just fail to see that our purpose is right there in those mundane, everyday things that are of far more importance than we realize in the moment.
Well, and I always think of that scripture, you who are blessed with little things and you do little things. I'm hearing some. I'm shutting off all my other windows. Do you have is your phone open?
No, ma'am.
I'm hearing some backlash, so I'm just making sure we've got everything closed. But I think of that scripture that says, ye who is trustworthy with little things is trustworthy in big things. And I think we forget to, you graduate to bigger things, and her purpose is very much progress. It's not perfection, and we don't get to leap forward. And, it took me 20 years to write my book. And I thought on day one when I started that I was ready, but God was really doing a work in me. And it was a deep, long journey of writing the book. And I think sometimes we think it's, not the long haul that it tends to be.
I agree with that so much. In fact, finding my true purpose was born out of intense pain and trauma and hardship, because the truth for me, Beth, is that without all of that, I really would have had very little to offer in the way of hope and encouragement as far as it is writing a book is concerned. And certainly with my home and as a wife and as a mother and a daughter and a friend and as a servant of Christ, we have so much to offer. As far as writing a book, however, I had to go through some deep valleys. And, Scripture tells us that we are to comfort others with the comfort we've been comforted with. Mm-hmm. And so that's the hard place to be, that the wilderness is a hard place to be, but we have to hold on and trust that there's purpose even in that spot.
Yes. Well, let's talk a little bit about that pain, because as a mom, you went through a NICU time with one of your sons. You had 2 twin sons, and so one was sick, and that had to be a time where you're just laboring in prayer before God. on behalf of your whole family, because when one person's in a hospital or sick, the whole family is home, really living through that. So what was going on in your heart when you were really laboring with God and wrestling with him that he could just make this over, but you still had to walk through a long time of that?
Oh, Beth, it was so hard and so painful. And I often, and still many times when I'm speaking to others, I refer to myself as a recovering Pharisee
Yeah.
because I grew up in the church. I professed to know Christ for 32 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when the rug of life was jerked from underneath me, my true foundation was exposed. And I have twin boys that were delivered 10 weeks, 2.5 months early. And one son ended up staying for a couple of months and had one surgery. But his little brother, Isaiah, ended up spending the first 324 consecutive days in 2 hospitals. He was at Vanderbilt Children's Hospital for 7 months. He then went into liver failure, and we were told there's nothing more we can do. Babies don't recover from this. Get anyone you want to see him and say goodbye.
Mm.
But God gave us a miracle, and we found out about an experimental drug in the clinical trials, not FDA approved, in Boston, Massachusetts. So 1 week later, Isaiah was life flighted to Boston Children's Hospital, where he spent another 4 months. And he returned home just under a year old. And Beth, he had so many special needs. He had a central line, a feeding tube, home health nurse. So if you could imagine, at one point, I was living in Boston, Massachusetts. And if you can't tell by my accent, I'm a Southern small town girl. But I was in Boston, Massachusetts with my son, who we'd been told was dying, and there's no hope for him in an experimental trial that we don't know what's going to happen. His twin brother was at home, over 1,000 miles away, with a feeding tube, and we had a 2-year-old son. So the separation and the trauma and the all of that just took an immense toll. And at a time when we had our beautiful miracle, he'd returned home. That was when the real battle started, because that's when I discovered what I was really made of. And the truth is, Beth, I had never really seen, despite those 32 years of professing Christ, I'd never truly seen the darkness of Callie Daruk's heart until those days.
Well, and you look at the world, nothing is normal right now. So normal world, we can hide behind, we think we work, but in a moment like what and you're staying on what, we really have to be prepared for those moments, because I don't know anybody who doesn't have them. And that's where purpose really comes in, because our faith really has to be that foundation. And if we don't have that, it's like we're swimming upstream. We're swimming up anyway. You have faith in God. How did he minister to your heart and your soul during that time and how did he hold y'all together?
Well, Beth, I'd like to say that it was a beautiful, seamless process, but it got worse before it got better. It got real ugly, to be honest. And there were some dark, ugly days. I was dealing with a lot of anger and bitterness, as many people go through. Women around me were having such beautiful experiences with their babies, and not to say that it was easy for them, because I know in the perfect circumstances, having a baby is very difficult. But I felt no one really understood what I was going through. And I was going through a deep theological crisis as well. So I never gave up trusting God. But Beth, I was just done playing the game, because my memoir is entitled Shattered Expectations. It wasn't supposed to be this way. Right. And that really summed up what I was feeling, is that it was not supposed to be this way. But on one beautiful day 9 years ago, God exposed my heart for what it was. And like the Pharisees in Mark 7 and Matthew 23, Jesus said unto them, Woe unto you! You clean the outside of the cup and make it appear beautiful before men, but inside it's full of filth and hypocrisy. And I fell on my face 9 years ago in my bedroom floor, completely alone, face to face with who I was and what I had become and the things that I said and things that I had done. And I saw my need for Jesus Christ in the most beautiful way. And when he should have rejected me, he brought his love and his peace into my heart and life. And 4 days after that, I began writing in a journal. And that one journal entry is why I'm here with you today, because of God's great providence. I wrote in that journal, Dear God, I want to give you my heart, my whole heart, but I don't know how. And that has began the most beautiful journey of falling in love with love himself and finding, why did you make me, Lord? What could I possibly offer you? Why am I here? And that's part of how this beautiful book was birthed.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, it's kind of spotty.
Okay, here we go. We spot. I'm gonna ask you a question, and I'm gonna go open a door and see if we have a better internet connection. So I think you said something that is really, really important, because you're come to Jesus moment, or it's not really about the religion as a church, but when you really, really, really got, when you felt the least worthy as a person, because you said you met your hypocrisy, and most of us want to come to Jesus and have those come to Jesus moments and hide that ourselves. But the truth is, he wants the ugly part of us just as the pretty of us, because he wants to do my work first, right? To be faithful with that, and you keep talking about open door.
Sure. Absolutely, Beth. That is the beautiful thing, is that depravity is exactly where he wanted me. Because in life, and especially as Christians, sometimes we profess him here, but we don't always see our great need of him, because we can go get a job, we can, work out, we can, exercise our muscles and do much of the things by ourselves. But the reality is, we're desperate for him, whether we see it or not. And I had never seen it. And there was also a point where I couldn't escape the ugliness. I couldn't escape who I really was. And that's exactly, you're right, that's what he wanted all along. So to say that I trusted God and doing it, I learned, are two vastly different things.
Yeah, so he really wants all of us, our whole heart, the things that we hide and everything. And, I like to think of it as, someone who builds a car and they design the car to do certain things. He's our creator who has designed us to be who we are. And, when you need to, check out, things aren't working out right, you have to go back to who created you for that specific purpose, because only he has those answers. And we tend to turn to those in our family, and we get on the telephone and we ask people, what do you think I should do about this crossroads in my life? And that's all good, but we've got to pray first and seek the Lord first and ask him, because he's the one. I mean, this is the most sacred journey in our life. It's that about purpose, because the one who created us for the purpose has all of the answers about our purpose.
Yeah, that's a great point, Beth. And I remember doing that as well. But truly searching for him, and in his word, he will reveal it to us. And there was also that part of me where I turned to others in my previous, I would say before the great crisis of my life, I did exactly what you said.
Mm-hmm.
But then going through that crisis, I turned to no one because I felt so alone and so isolated. And I think that's the second step, that alert, we're in danger. First, we go to other people instead of going to God. And then we don't go to anyone, including God. And that's where I had gotten. But when I went to him with the ugliness, the darkness, the blackness, the truth of all of those things, it radically changed my life. And I even went through a point, Beth, where I wouldn't read anybody's book. And the funny thing is, I'm an author, but I had to set all that aside and truly just look at his word and ask him, who are you? Who am I? Why am I here? What do you have for me? And he is so faithful to answer when we come and seek.
Well, and that's well said, because when you say, who are you, you're basically also saying, and that means, who am I? Because if we know who he is, we begin to know who we are, but we have to know who he is first. But, talking about isolation, we've spent a lot of time in our homes this year, and we have been isolated. We don't get to go do the fun things that we've been doing, lunch with friends, the things that used to be quick escapes. And, we've kind of been front and center with ourselves and those close to our family. And I like to say, this is a great time to ask the question, what have you learned from what you've learned? What do you think about people that are feeling disconnected and isolated? How do they make that, that transition into truly seeking God, their creator, for what they were made to do?
I think there's no better time than right now, right here, today, to do that, Beth. We have been given this opportunity, and it is very much in our perspective and how we view this. Yes, it has been tragic and devastating and difficult and challenging and trying, but it has also been a beautiful time to, the Bible says in Isaiah 55, ho, which means be quiet, listen. And so for me, this has been a time of that. And even prior to this quarantine situation, I had been sensing in my spirit, Callie, be at your post. Be at your post as a soldier is, because we are soldiers in the army of Christ. And so when all this happened, another question came to my heart, and I began asking the Lord, what is my duty in this present crisis? What is my duty? Because that is hard. There's so many noises, so many voices. It's so loud out there. What do we do? So that has been my question. And I would encourage others to ask that, Lord, what is my duty in this present crisis? But I think also taking advantage of this quiet, because the Bible also says, be still and know that I am God. And in the quiet, that's a gift. That is actually a beautiful gift, the quiet. But it can be very hard because you hear your own noise. You hear the outside noise. But taking it right here, right now, because we are not promised tomorrow. We don't know if there will be one or what it will hold. So just even in this day, Lord, what would you have me to do?
And I think that's well said, because we're being forced to rethink things and relook at things. And, everybody's like, I just want to get to 2021, but we want to make the most of this opportunity, because, it is an opportunity to evaluate. It is an opportunity to reprioritize. I think it would be great if, I like to say, if you really want to know who you are, start by knowing who you're not. And I think that, we ought to take this opportunity to say, okay, in 2021, I'm going to take off half of what I had on my list in 2021, because I really do want to do my life's mission. I really do want to live my life's purpose. And in order to do that, I have to hear from the one who's downloading that purpose into me every day. It's no different than a computer. What's in there? Search, 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 search. Where are we searching for the information that gives us the direction on which to go for our life? So purpose is, that's what you're describing.
It is. And even to presume, as you said, I've heard a lot of people say, they can't wait for 2021. Isn't that a presumptuous statement?
Exactly.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah.
It is. It's so true. But you think about not everybody knows the books of the Bible, but when you think of Esther, when she said, for such a time as this, there's no accident that we're all here at this time in history, and we're all here, and we have to think in terms of, okay, if I'm here right now, what is my mission? And what are the easy, besides I know we read the Bible, what are things people can do to kind of turn off the world and turn up God's voice?
Oh my, that's a great question. As you said, I think we have to get our priorities straight.
Mm-hmm.
Because while we've been giving this external opportunity to be quiet, it doesn't have to be quiet. We could fill it with anything we choose. We could turn on the TV, we could put on Netflix and veg out on period dramas. We can work ourselves 2 and 3 jobs. We can read books. I mean, there are different things we can do to drown out the quiet. But I would encourage not to do that. Mm-hmm. I would encourage to fight against that urge to do and be busy. And there are things we must do. I have almost 3 teenage boys in my house, and I can't just not feed them.
Right.
But, it really starts with, honestly, I would recognize, Father, my life is chaos. What can I do to be still? What can I do to just quiet the noise? It starts with, for me, acknowledging that my life is too noisy. There's too much busyness. Mm-hmm. And then asking him, Lord, what can I take off my plate right now? Mm-hmm. And also, when we talk about purpose, we expect it to be this sometimes glamorous. I don't know if that's just me, but sometimes when we talk about our, yeah. But it sometimes means, and often as Christians, and I think we're now realizing this more than we ever have, it may mean and will likely mean being uncomfortable. It will likely mean doing things you don't want to do or are not necessarily easy for you. When I was a young girl, I was so shy, and I would have never imagined that I would be speaking to someone like you, Beth, and having this opportunity to share my heart. So this is maybe uncomfortable for me, and yet, if this is what God has called me to do, we have to trust his purpose and take a back seat. And so resisting those urges to do what's comfortable and
That's true. And I have some young women in my life, and they'll say, how do you get to be so secure? And, I'm like, well, the only answer I've got is you do things that require security. How do you get to be confident? You do things that require you to have confidence. You learn confidence and security by doing things that allow you to develop that. It's much like working out. You don't just show up and run a marathon. You start small, but you choose to do things that teach you skills that help you to become more comfortable because you're growing, and therefore your level of uncomfortable goes down, but yet you always want to continue developing, and putting yourself out there because, you're right. It's got to be uncomfortable. I mean, who's comfortable in today's world? Nobody. I mean, there's nothing in the Bible that says, okay, Christians, when a pandemic comes, do this. But, it does say at all points of your life, seek me above all else. And, he will lead us, he will guide us. And it says, many of the plans of the man's heart, but the Lord's purpose prevails. So that means we can go out and do stuff all day long. But at the end of the day, he's got the master plan, and he's going to lead us to the right place.
Mm-hmm. You know, when you were talking about that, it made me think of something I wrote about in the book where I said, if someone had asked me, when you were talking about being comfortable, if someone had asked me, Callie, do you want to write a book? Well, sure. The answer would have been yes. But I'm not sure that I would have been as self-motivated to do that by myself. I would hope that, like you said, I would discipline myself and I would accomplish that goal and put myself in situations where I could achieve that. But when the script was flipped, and if someone had asked me, Callie, does God want you to write a book? That changed everything. So to your point, when you realize the motive and what's fueling that, then the confidence is no longer in us and our abilities or our inabilities. In my case, more my inabilities, but that confidence is in him, in the God of all creation. And if he has called you to it, most likely it will be something you're insecure in, because there is no option but to trust him then.
That's right. And you should be able to measure your goals and your what you hope to achieve by your faith, because if it's something you can achieve apart from God, it's not from God.
Absolutely. And that is where we mix that up so many times. My dear friend often says, Callie, if you go to the cabinets and you say you're trusting God for food, but there's food in the cabinets, it simply did not require faith. You can say you had faith for it, it just didn't require it. But when you go to that cabinet and that cabinet is empty, then that's when the faith is required. And I know, looking in my own life, I spent 32 years, Beth, saying I had faith for food in my cabinets, but the cabinets were full. But when all that food got knocked out and they just kept coming and they got empty, more empty and more empty and more empty, that's when it required faith. And that's when I began to see him for who he is.
Which is steady, faithful, always there, never going to leave us. And we just got to reach out and say, Lord, are you there? Well, let's switch gears to your book, because we could talk all day, but we can't. But so tell us about your book, and it's coming out October the 6th. Congratulations. So exciting. And tell us about your book.
Beth, I am so excited about this book. I had no idea a year ago that a global pandemic lurked around the corner. I had no idea that riots and protests and so many of the things that we're witnessing were right around the corner, but God is so wise and so all-knowing. So this book is for such a time as this. The topic of death is not always one we like to talk about, but the reality is none of us know what tomorrow holds. And the truth is, we don't even know if there will be one. So this book is designed for others to look inside their heart and look at the times in which we live and ask themselves, Lord, why am I here? What did you put me here on this earth, as you mentioned earlier, to do and to accomplish? Because I know most Christians, if not all, long to stand before the Father and hear, well done. That's my son. That's my daughter. And that's what I long to hear. So I want to use whatever time God's given me remaining on this earth to be hard after his purpose, just as Jesus was, to have my face fixed like flint solely on him, and to accomplish what he put me here to accomplish. And so this book is designed to help those who want to know that too.
And what is the title? And it's on Amazon, and the best place to get it, your website, all those connections, we'll post them. But
sure, the book is What Does God Want You to Do Before You Die? And it is available October 6th. It's available now for pre-order, but it releases October 6th, and it's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, major retailers, and my website as well, CallieDaruk.com. And I'd love to hear from readers and hear how it's impacting their hearts. I have had the opportunity with my launch team to get some feedback, and it's been so encouraging.
Well, you're right. God had the wisdom to have you do a book like that for right now, what perfect timing. I mean, that is just impeccable timing.
His always is, isn't it, Beth?
So it's a 30-day devotional?
It is 30-day devotional. And I wrote it that way because this is a tough topic.
It is.
But when you really get into it, you begin to discover that Jesus was very well of his death, and that actually fueled his purpose. Mm-hmm. It fueled what he had to do and why he had to do it in the small amount of time he had to do it in.
Yeah.
And so it's written in a way that you can take little parts a day at a time if you need to. And many people have said, Callie, I couldn't put it down. I read it all the way through. So however is best for you to read.
That's very, very good. Well, we'll post that, and I'm very excited about it. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story and the process of you learning to trust God in the midst of learning your purpose. And that's what we're all about here. And I think everybody wants to know the answer to that question, and you've done a great job helping us move forward as we all look for answers to the questions that we have about a purpose-filled life. So thank you so much. We'll keep in touch, and we'll bring you back around again once the book comes out and talk about what people are learning.
That'd be awesome, Beth. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for joining us. We'll talk again soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.